Friday, March 30. Today turned out to be exciting. In the middle of second period, Miss Neely called me out of class and asked if I would like to go have lunch with Angela Badger. I said, "Sure, how come?" Miss Neely explained that the teachers discovered that the winning poem had been copied out of a book and wasn't original, so the girl who submitted it would not be allowed to go, and would I like to go in her place? Would I? Miss Neely telephoned Mom at work for permission, and I gave my lunch to Barry because my lunches are better than his. The other winners were all dressed up, but I didn't care. I've noticed that authors like Mr Henshaw usually wear old plaid shirts and the pictures on the back of their books. My shirt is just as old as his, so I knew it was okay. Miss Neely drove us in her own car to the Holiday Inn, where some other librarians and their winners were waiting in the lobby. And then Angela Badger arrived with Mr. Badger, and we were all led into the dining room, which was pretty crowded. One of the librarians, who was a sort of super librarian, told the winners to sit at a long table with a sign that said reserved. Angela Badger sat in the middle, and some of the girls pushed to sit beside her. I sat across from her. Super librarian explained that we would choose our lunch from the salad bar. Then all the librarians went off and sat at a table with Mr. Badger. There I was, face to face with a real live author who seemed like a nice lady, plump with wild hair. I couldn't think of anything to say because I hadn't read her books. Some girls told her how much they loved her books, but some of the boys and girls were too shy to say anything. Nothing seemed to happen until Miss Badger said, "Why don't we all go help ourselves to lunch at the salad bar?" What a mess. Some people didn't understand about salad bars. But Miss Badger led the way, and we helped ourselves to lettuce and bean salad, potato salad, and all the usual stuff they lay out on salad bars. A few of the younger kids were too short to reach anything, but the bowls were on the first rows. They weren't doing too well until Mrs. Badger helped them out. Getting lunch took a long time, longer than a school cafeteria. And when we carried our plates back to our table, people at the other tables ducked and dodged as if they expected us to dump our lunches on their heads. All one boy had on his plate was a piece of lettuce and a slice of tomato because he thought he was going to get to go back for roast beef and fried chicken. We had to straighten him out and explain that all we got was salad. He turned red and went back for more salad. I was still trying to think of something interesting to say to Mrs. Badger while I chased garbanzo beans around my plate with a fork. A couple of girls did all the talking, telling Miss Badger how they wanted to write books exactly like hers. The other librarians were busy talking and laughing with Mr. Badger, who seemed to be a lot of fun. Mrs. Badger tried to get some of the shy people to say something without much luck, and I still couldn't think of anything to say to a lady who wrote books about girls with big feet or pimples. Finally, Miss Badger looked straight at me and asked, "What did you write for the yearbook?" I felt myself turn red and answered, "Just something about a ride on a truck." "Oh," said Mrs. Badger, "so you're the author of A Day on Dad's Rig." Everyone was quiet. None of us had known the real live author would have read what we had written, but she had. She remembered my title. "I just got honorable mention," I said, but I was thinking, she called me an author. A real live author called me an author. "What difference does that make?" asked Mrs. Badger. "Judges never agree." I happen to like A Day on Dad's Rig because it was written by a boy who wrote honestly about something he knew and had strong feelings about. You made me feel what it was like to ride down a steep grade with a ton of grapes behind me. "But I couldn't make it into a story," I said, feeling a whole lot braver. "Who cares?" said Mrs. Badger with a wave of her hand. She's the kind of person who wears rings on her forefingers. "What do you expect? The ability to write stories comes later when you've lived longer and have more understanding. A Day on Dad's Rig was splendid work for a boy your age. You wrote like you, and you did not try to imitate someone else. This is one mark of a good writer. Keep it up." I noticed a couple girls who had been saying they wanted to write books exactly like Angela Badger exchange embarrassed looks. "Gee, thanks," was all I could say. The waitress began to plunk down dishes of ice cream. Everyone got over being shy and began to ask Mrs. Badger if she wrote in pencil or on the typewriter, and did she ever have books rejected, and were her characters real people? Like, did she ever have pimples when she was a girl, like the girl in her book? And what did it feel like to be a famous author? And I think the answers to those questions are very important. But I did have one question I wanted to ask, which I finally managed to get in at the last minute, when Mrs. Badger was autographing some books people had. "Mrs. Badger," I said, "did you ever meet Boyd Henshaw?" "Why, yes," she said, scribbling away on someone's book. "I once met him at a meeting of librarians, where we were on the same program." "What's he like?" I asked, over the head of a girl crowding up with her book. "He's a very nice young man, with a wicked twinkle in his eye," she answered. "I think I have known that since the time he answered my questions when Miss Martinez made us write to an author. On the ride home, everybody was chattering about Miss Badger this and Miss Badger that. I didn't want to talk. I just wanted to think. A real-life author had called me an author. A real-life author had told me to keep it up. Mom was proud of me when I told her. The gas station stopped pinging a long time ago, but I wanted to write all this down while I remembered. I'm glad tomorrow's Saturday. If I had to go to school, I'd yawn. I wish Dad was here so I could tell him all about today." March 31st. Dear Mr. Henshaw, I'll keep this short to save you some time reading it. I had to tell you something. You were right. I wasn't ready to write an imaginary story. But guess what? I wrote a true story, which won honorable mention in the yearbook. Maybe next year I'll write something that will win first or second place. Maybe by then I'll be able to write an imaginary story. I just thought you'd like to know. Thank you for your help. If it hadn't been for you, I might have handed in that dumb story about the melting wax trucker. Your friend, the author, Lee Botts. P.S. I still write in the diary you started me on.